Hey, pro-life Jeds, Kristen Hawkins. Welcome to this new episode of Explicitly Pro-Life Podcast. Just remember the name of the podcast is Explicitly Pro-Life because from here on out, I cannot guarantee what may come out of my guest's mouth. I am super excited to have my friend Briscoe Cain joining me here in person, live, not via Zoom.
Explicitly here
in Houston. Briscoe is a Students for Life alum. He actually started the first law school Students for Life group south of what state?
West of
Mississippi.
Yeah.
I don't know how he came up with the title, but that's great. Years ago, that's how I met Briscoe.
Yeah, 12
and
years.
He's gone on to become a lawyer. He serves here in a law firm in Houston. You may have recalled seeing him when David Daleiden had to turn himself in Houston for exposing Planned Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
Briscoe is one of his attorneys. He also serves as a representative in the Texas State Legislature. He has the title of the most conservative, 1 out of 150 multiple sessions, and according to a scientific and nonpartisan study from Rice University, for being the most conservative member of the House of Representatives here in Texas. So this is going to be a very, very fun conversation. The other thing you may not know is he's actually one of the original co-authors of the Texas heartbeat law that's saving about 100 children every single day. Yeah. That's caused a national phenomenon where every pro-abort in America is like freaking out.
Yeah, total panic
mode. I get the privilege of seeing those people on campus. Thank you very much for freaking out. He gets sued regularly by the abortion lobby. It's great. And he just smiles and jokes about the whole time. So
yeah. It's like, it's part of earning it.
Yeah.
Lets you know you're doing the right thing.
I love that you enjoyed so much. I do want to say, Briscoe has 5 children. He's been married to his wife, Burgundy, for 10 years?
Yes.
10 years. 10 years.
5 boys.
Five boys. Homeschoolers. And they cheated. They stole one of my names because one of their children's name is Maverick.
Well, you stole it from Texas. So
of course,
Samuel Maverick was a revolutionary. He actually survived the Alamo. They sent him to go find reinforcements. Anyways, the word Maverick, the adjective, is named after Samuel Maverick.
There you go. Of course I would learn this in Texas because everything comes from Texas.
Well, right? All of our sons' names are counties in Texas.
Yeah, because you have Briscoe Jr., right? Where are the 4?
Briscoe 4.
Briscoe
Walker,
4. Oh, sorry.
Crockett is probably familiar to some in the audience.
Yeah.
Maverick and Hockley.
Did Crockett actually say "Hold my beer"? Because I was at the Alamo and there was a T-shirt, "Hold my beer, Davy Crockett." I was like, I feel like he was a little busy.
No. Yeah, I have a feeling they did.
They should not be selling T-shirts with an accurate quote at the Alamo.
No one would do that in Texas and have inaccurate quotes.
You should definitely go after them for that. You're a state representative. You should tell that foundation, stop selling. Because my son was like, did he really say that? And I couldn't find.
Yeah, I think he said, "Hold my beer. Let's end abortion." That was what he said fully.
Oh, okay. That's what you say.
No, that was David Crockett. It's a direct quote.
Oh, okay, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to talk to you about your journey, and then I want to get into some of the things that you've experienced in Austin, and also what you've been up to within the broader state, within the pro-life movement. So I have kind of a full agenda here. When did you first decide to care about abortion?
Man, it was, I'm trying to think of how to make a long story short. It was a moment that was a slap in the face, right? So I wouldn't say that I was always pro-life, right? Even though I grew up in a church, and I often say, either it wasn't being talked about from the pulpit or I wasn't paying attention. Mm-hmm. Probably the not paying attention part that I wasn't hearing about it. I kind of had this idea that one was for Sunday mornings, Wednesdays, this was this lifestyle, and then outside it was the world. Mm-hmm. And to be brief about it, maybe for some of those who are gamers, this is like, I don't know, 2004, 5 or so, still playing online video games. My gamer tag was RU486, right? So I kind of celebrated this concept of abortion. Anyways, yeah, man, I was pro-abortion. And so I go to this young adult thing, this young kind of Christian conference, and a group from Bound for Life was there, right? The OGs with the tape on their mouths that, I guess they still pray in front of the Supreme Court. And I met them, and some words were exchanged, and the reality of abortion just hit me hard. I'm trying not to get emotional of it. And so
Matt
Lord
Lockett just slapped you with the truth
God-
and a Bound for Life sticker.
God got a hold of my heart, and it was from that even that I decided to even go to law school for the sole and express purpose of fighting abortion, and then running for office for that exact same reason, right? Like your whole life changes when Christ gets hold of your heart, and you're like, man, we're on a mission. And so it's just kind of continued to happen from there, and God's just kind of put me in these really neat spots. And also maybe in a way blessed the work. There's a lot of, at some point we'll probably be all over the place, but I think earlier we were talking.
Our conversation all over the place.
Definitely. And there's an idea, I think I'd overheard you saying, like, some people disrespect Students for Life because they're just students.
Yeah.
And in your young age, people are just going to overlook you. And I'd say, just get over it. Like, keep going, right? Like keep being the squeaky wheel. Eventually, they'll get your attention. And even at the end of the day, they don't recognize that the idea or the passion or the reason the thing got done was because of your youth or the students, and they take credit for it. It doesn't really matter, right? Like, God knows who. Yep. and so be happy with that. And so I kind of say that in a way of recognizing, I look really young at 37. And
we're the same age.
You're so much younger than me. But like your activism, just keep going. I mean, there's going to be people that are going to close doors in your face and not think your ideas are good. But don't be deterred. Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, can't give up.
No, not at all. So, man, I think, gosh, I was a baby lawyer. It's like 2015 or so when stuff went down with David. David had called me before the videos come out and said, let's do a FOIA, in Texas called a Public Information Act request, where we asked for records from all the medical schools in Texas, and it turned out that 3 medical schools were, using tax dollars to purchase baby body parts
from the mega abortion facility that's here in Houston.
Yeah,
right?
one of them was from Houston. Well, what's wild with that is UTMB Galveston is a medical school there.
I've spoken there.
Thanks, man. And one of the things we showed is that one of the abortionists at Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast, which is your mega center, the largest in our hemisphere, she was simultaneously employed as a professor at UTMB Galveston, and she's buying her own baby parts. That was wild. She's now out in Massachusetts. But anyways, so what we revealed is the purchase orders and the invoices lined up. Like Missy Farrell is doing the invoices. You watch the video. Here's July when Missy Farrell discussing these things. It supported that whole concept. And when the indictments came out, David's like, release them. And so we did. Eventually, congressional subcommittee, used those invoices plus David's videos to say criminal prosecution should come.
Was he charged here in Houston with a crime?
Yeah, he was indicted.
What happened with the indictment?
He got tossed. It was squashed.
For illegal recording, or what was the indictment for?
Yeah, it was kind of the...
I didn't know you were involved, and then I saw, because we obviously were working with David, and the whole pro-life movement was trying to really kind of keep this issue at the forefront. And then all of a sudden I saw Briscoe's face like peeking out on the side. I was like, oh, of course he's there.
Yeah, my capacity in that one was kind of political, recognizing at that time as a Republican DA, and we just need him to do the right thing. Sometimes it's, as you'll find, whether your arguments are the best, sometimes pressure and being that voice, showing up to committees and hearings can make people do the right thing. And we were able to put the right team together and get the right result.
And you obviously know a lot about pressure and doing the right thing, because you're the most conservative legislator in the Texas House.
Yeah, 3 times in a row.
3 times in a row. So I can imagine you're not well liked.
Eventually you get tolerated. Originally it's not well liked, and then they tolerate you.
How does that go? Because I think that sometimes you'll see that, like when we're trying to pass a piece of legislation that bans all abortions, or, it's like, well, you have to be careful because you don't want to go too far to the right, because then the establishment, they're not good. Like, for example, Students for Life Action inspired a bill that was our first federal piece of legislation was introduced. I don't want to say names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but it was introduced last summer in the House of Representatives. Super excited about it. And then like another member of Congress wouldn't work with us because a member of the Freedom Caucus in DC had sponsored this bill. And so we had gone to the right wing to get a bill sponsored. And so then there was like debate of like, oh, do we have to go to more establishment? Like, how does that work? Like going through like just being a pain in their ass, essentially, and forcing the Republicans to do the right thing, to stay strong, and then eventually just getting tolerated and then respected.
First off, kind of what I hear, and I'll try and digest it or dissect it rather, is we find ourselves negotiating against ourselves. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like you're going too far when you do this. Why are you negotiating against yourself? Like, let the process maybe negotiate it down. Yep. But like, anchor for the full thing. If in the process through the committee hearing or on the floor, it gets watered down to where you didn't like, that happened. But why
you should stop and
out?
repeat what he just said, because what you just said is exactly the fight that we're hearing in state legislatures across the country this term right now. Is this, well, the heartbeat bill is too hard to get passed, so we need to drop the heartbeat bill, we need to only pass the 15-week bill. And I'm like, wait a minute, why are we negotiating with ourselves and censoring ourselves? If they watered down our bill in committee, that's on their conscience, but why are we doing it?
Yeah, no, it's a bad idea. Don't negotiate against yourselves.
Rule number 1 from Briscoe.
Then,
keep going.
Though, is in short, make them take the vote. Like, let's get to the floor and let's go for a vote. We'll go, oh, we don't think we have the votes. Dare you to vote against it. Mm-hmm. Like, the primaries are going to be fun. Like, bring it, right? Like, that's how you got to do it. So you got to strong arm it, force it through, let the personalities work themselves out. We get a lot of things done by making people take a vote on it.
Make them take the vote. Yeah. This is why you should sign for Students for Life of Action. Students for Life Action's leadership workshop. We have a whole workshop about grassroots politics, and it's free. And it's about making political leaders do the hard thing and actually stand up for their beliefs.
Put them on record. I mean,
take the vote.
If you're out there, talking to your legislator or something like that, and they give you a response like, I don't know how I'll vote. We'll find out when it gets to the floor. No, like, tell me now. Like, what kind of cop-out is that? People let judges get away with it all the time. Like, judges aren't allowed to talk about that. Nonsense. They can talk about it. They can't talk about things. What if it came before their court? Then they might have to recuse themselves. But they can talk about it. I want to know how you feel about abortion as a judge. Tell me. It doesn't disqualify you from hearing that case. It disqualifies you if you were to give me the exact example with the facts. That may be a reason to recuse. But no, make them do it. They're always trying to
How do you tolerate, though, the arguments that people are, you're an extremist, don't work with Briscoe, or like, what are the mean things that they say about you? I find that a lot of pro-life activists they don't want their friends or people who should be their friends to be angry with them. And that really affects them. Like me, I don't really care, because like, I don't need friends. I have like 4 friends. I'm good. And I've made 4 other friends as my children. So like, it's full. Like, I don't really care at the end of the day if you hate me.
I'd say the technique, in a way, as a legislator, you're doing is trying to balance this line of personalities versus policy, right? So I'm not against that person because I don't like them. We just may have these policy disagreements, which is really important legislatively. And eventually, I think, at least for me, as people begin to respect that I'm not against them, this is my stance on policy. Guy. And eventually, though, people will begin to respect you because you're a hard line. Yep. And they realize you're not making them take that vote because you don't like them or you want them to lose their next election. You draw a hard line on this policy. This is what I believe, and take it or not. Let's have a vote. Mm-hmm. Let's go as far as we can.
So how the hell are you elected in your district? Because you don't sound like a normal politician when you talk.
Talking to them. The people, right? It came from a lot of door knocking. We took out an incumbent, a 12-year incumbent, a really powerful guy from just knocking on doors and having a grassroots campaign. And I still prioritize the voters and being really easily accessible and taking phone calls. I mean, my cell phone's out there, and not placing my time at going to like chamber and Rotary stuff. I mean, don't get mad at me, chamber and Rotary people. Y'all are important.
They don't really listen to the podcast, I doubt.
I don't think they listen. But the time-wise is by being there and being accountable to people and just being real.
Like, you can be a real person who has a firm, hard line that is advancing a mission to abolish abortion and still get elected to office. Because, honest to God, that is why I've never really entertained seriously the thought of running for office. People tell me all the time I should run for office, and I'm like, why? Because I will get defeated. The only fun would be really seeing the RNC squirm.
You'll get defeated.
I would get defeated by my own party.
I'm going to preach to you where you like leaving room for God in this.
I know. Man. Come on. See, there you go.
Where's the room for that?
I know.
We're like looking at our own talents and things, man. Absolutely. If it was based up to us, our own talents, we would have definitely, not been there. It's recognizing that we're just kind of commanded to
I think
act.
burgundy, though, your wife puts up with it. I don't
reason I
know
like
if my
is
husband would let me do that.
Yeah, burgundy's actually the secret weapon.
Yeah.
Literally, why do
spouses
people
are
like
always
you in
the
the
secret
legislature?
weapons.
Because they met her.
Yeah.
And they're told that all the time. And I think one of the reasons it helps me, like not be a sellout is she'd run against me. So it's good. It's good assurances.
I love that the threat that the wife will run against you. No, my husband is my secret weapon. And people, I was like, how can you do it all? I'm like, because I have a superhero at home who manages the chaos, homeschools the children, does the breathing treatments, and says, okay, I guess we're driving 6 hours today and towing our entire house behind us, and has learned to tow his house and pack it up and become a handyman because, we live in our fifth wheel
Doing out of necessity.
camper. So, I mean, he's the real hero, but I do think Sam running for public office might be one step too far.
Doing the camper thing's getting kind of trendy. I've got some friends doing it.
It's very
and
trendy. I'm
they're like,
homeless by
save a bunch
choice.
of money. And I'm like, 5 kids.
You know what? You can save money. However, we have so much fun. I don't really think. I just keep charging it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, there's inflation, so
Or it lets you spend
I'm
it
just
elsewhere.
I'm just gonna keep charging it, whatever. But we have so much fun. Like we do have a lot of fun. Like we
Yeah, but it
swam
frees
with
up
dolphins.
money to do
Oh
that.
yeah, we swam with dolphins. I kissed a dolphin on the nose, and I swam with a dolphin. Like I've always we do all kinds of fun things. Like the kids, So that's a
Right
whole
on.
nother podcast. I get asked about it a lot, but I convinced my husband to do something completely crazy, so he gets all the credit. So okay, I like these Briscoe life lessons because now you've challenged me, and now I feel really bad because I'm not letting God speak. But okay.
That wasn't about condemnation. I mean, I need that preached to myself all the time. I mean, it happens when we're looking at legislation or pushing it. We question ourselves, like what's going to be this outcome. And the pro-aborts I think we all recognize this as spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for those that identify as pro-life agnostics and stuff. Great. I hope y'all keep coming overboard. But I'll recognize we're on the team. We're on the same mission. But we've got to often realize to make room for him, because when you're questioning it, or whether you're counting your votes, or whether you think you can get it done, you just got to realize, man, the results is, and just be prudent and keep going forward. It doesn't matter at the end of the day
Another Briscoe tip.
who cares who gets the credit, right?
right.
It's all about the babies.
So, okay, speaking of who cares gets a credit, you didn't get a lot of credit for the Texas heartbeat bill. Tell me, how did that bill come to fruition?
Yeah.
And what was the thought process behind, wait a minute, we need to do something different here in Texas. It's not criminal enforcement. We got to try something that's never been tried before.
Mm-hmm.
How did that civil enforcement of, letting anybody in the country sue someone who is a party to an abortion, who commits an abortion, not a woman, but how did that come in?
Yeah.
Who thought of that? That's genius,
We
because
do it. 2018, I'm in
Okay.
Washington, D.C. We're at outside the Palm, outside the Ritz-Carlton there in Tyson's Corner. You've been there a few times.
yes.
A man named Tom DeLay walks out. This is the former majority leader. Great guy. I mean, some of us don't know him today, but this is a huge figure.
Yeah, he was a
who,
very big
at one
figure in
point being the
Washington,
most powerful man in D.C.
That's right.
Comes to say he regrets he didn't do more on the abortion issue.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got some books on Article 3, for example, which allows you to Congress has can do jurisdiction of the courts, and theoretically a future legislature could actually say, hey, federal courts, y'all don't have anything to do with abortion, sorry. I mean, that's kind of Tom DeLay stuff. Anyways, Tom DeLay comes out and he says, can I sit down? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. And we sit down and have a glass of scotch and get to know each other. And at that time, he was working with Janet Porter in other states on heartbeat bills. And we got to be friends. Mm-hmm. And so ahead of our state Republican convention, Tom DeLay and I go and convince them to make the heartbeat bill a legislative priority. And I carried it in 2019, had essentially a majority of the legislature sign on to it. But then the version, the heartbeat bill was pre-civil enforcement concept.
Okay.
But it had a lot of energy. And
Did it pass in 2019?
No. It didn't pass. But it got the conversation started and showed a lot of energy by having we have a majority of members kind of sign on it. It sends a message. And so there was an outrage of it not being done, and also some other great members that wanted to see it done. Then fast forward a little bit, Janet Porter is at a National Association of Christian Legislators, runs into Senator Brian Hughes, which knows maybe been on else things, and gives me a call, says, hey, I think we found the Senate sponsor. So fast forward a little bit, Brian Hughes is kind of part of this, and he'd known a man named Jonathan Mitchell a little longer. Now, when you're Googling it, Jonathan Mitchell, you start seeing the architect behind the Texas Heartbeat Act. And so Jonathan comes in and
the legal genius, Jonathan Mitchell.
The legal genius. He has this idea of doing it pure civil enforcement.
Why? Why did that idea of civil enforcement come up?
Well, it's a way to bypass Roe. In fact, when he said it, it really kind of resonated with something inside with my spirit, because when I was a pro-life law student, my chapter sponsor, phone's ringing, go away. My chapter sponsor, a law professor, had said, hey, man, if you ever want to end abortion, start suing abortionists. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you don't pass legislation, just sue them. That was the concept. Just like drag them into litigation, depose
Cost
them,
money.
Make their lives hell, make their malpractice insurance drop them, make it to where they can't do anything else. They're like, you know what? I'm going to do something else. Like, that was the concept. And so there's Okapali. I can't really pronounce it. It's out of the Fifth Circuit. It's a Louisiana case. It kind of dealt with where they had tried to pass a med-mal kind of tort reform, removing abortionists from their med-mal. And there's some legal issues with that.
So you, as an abortionist, wouldn't be able to get medical malpractice insurance.
Or you wouldn't be covered by it, so it makes it easier to sue.
Okay.
Anyways, that case kind of set up this framework that helped then do civil enforcement. So fast forward with a similar thought, when he said it, I was like, that totally makes sense, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually had history where we go and meet with these pro-life lawyers, really wealthy guys, right, that are Christian personal injury lawyers, saying, hey,
they'd like to make some money.
Yeah, like or just realize we might lose, but the whole point is what we call the repeat player doctrine of just sue them over and over. These are the same exact concepts that actually desegregated public education. I mean, the NAACP's legal efforts were about doing it over and over again. Eventually they won, or early on they didn't. Similar concepts are now beginning to kind of come out in the civil enforcement concept. So he came up with that idea, but I just have so many memories that come back to me sitting on my back porch at home on these phone calls of how should we word it? What do we need to do? Should the rapist be able to have standing? Like, no, let's make sure the rapist doesn't get standing. And
the thing that they all say that the rapist has standing.
Yeah, they don't. And, only a text can bring it. And jurisdictionally, where can you bring it? Venue can be at your county or the county of the abortionist, so that we were able to get around issues of having liberal judges and things. And fast forward, here we are. You don't have pre-enforcement standing. I hope I'm not getting too nerdy.
You're getting a little
to bring
nerdy,
a challenge.
I'm almost following you.
Yeah. All right. So under abortion jurisprudence and under free speech and religion, if a statute is passed criminalizing it, before someone comes and arrests you, you can bring litigation to prevent it. Everything else, no. Like, let's say they pass an unconstitutional, traffic law that like blank speeding ticket. You have to wait until you get ticketed to challenge it.
Okay, got it.
Under these, you don't have to wait. You can bring a pre-enforcement lawsuit. Well, the only way you can bring a pre-enforcement lawsuit is there's some kind of threatened enforcement or the ability of the government to enforce it. Government can't enforce this. It's only enforced by private actors. Well, who do you enjoin? There's no one to enjoin. I mean, you can't enjoin the whole world.
And that's how the abortion industry has always kind of stopped pro-life legislation. Is it gets passed, they enjoin like all of the AG.
There you go. You enjoin the enforcement, the police arm, or the medical board.
And they can't enjoin it until it goes through the courts. Is that right?
No, they can't bring any injunction because the government has no enforcement power, period. It's only by private actors.
Jeez.
There's nothing they can do about it. Sorry. I mean, it's beautiful. And in other states, try to look at it and look, it's worked. Yeah. And even if it eventually somehow
what happens? Is the Supreme Court going to wuss out on this? Because we thought, like, if I would have lost the bet, if you would have asked me in November when the Supreme Court held the emergency hearing, thanks to the Biden administration, I would have thought they would have ruled against you.
They can.
They can?
I mean, they can't. They would, all right, in order to do so, they would have to do the same thing that was done in 73. Make stuff up out of thin air. There is no kind of legal.
Too much credit if you don't think they'll do that.
Yeah, but I think the people would have known. There's no legal doctrine. There's no case law they can quote or use.
So what does this do though to gun owners in California? Because California now, to get back at you, is going to introduce a law that's going to.
They've been talking about that for 2 years now.
Citizens to what? Like sue citizens for having certain types of guns.
Yeah, firearms. Man, we'll find out. Bring it.
So my thought has been, Well, okay, that kind of sucks for gun owners, but I don't really care because a bunch of babies are being saved. Like, it's not like a legal worry of mine. Like, I have a pretty much a one-track mind. My husband's like, stop saying that.
I don't see them doing it.
Okay. I think it's very
like
hard.
I think they'll try, but I don't think it's happening. It's a different thing. I don't see some like neighbor being like, I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna bring a suit against my neighbor. It's a crazy thing. Like, you really want to sue gun owners? Like, good luck for it. But I'll get over it. Right at the end of the day, people, I know that's some of the pushback people are afraid of.
I know that was a push.
But what's odd is the cat's already out of the bag.
Yeah, it's
so
done.
like it's Oklahoma, Virginia's like
get on board the trains up to station.
Virginia's afraid of a civil enforcement heartbeat style bill, and they're afraid of doing it because someone might
listens to his DC consultants.
Because they might do a California style. What's holding them from doing a California style civil enforcement gun thing right now? It's a really weird excuse. Like, the cat's out of the bag. Let's roll. Yeah. And whether the court strikes
That's literally how I got some people on board. I said, I understand your concern, but the cat's out of the bag, so we're going forward. Like, what else are you going to do?
I mean, and the proof's there. 100 plus babies a day. Great. If it
are we
lasts for
still
2 years
waiting on a Supreme Court decision? Because they still haven't.
It came back to the Texas Supreme Court on whether or not it was a certified question from the Fifth Circuit, which is our intermediate level appellate court that covers the state of Texas, located in New Orleans, on a question of whether the medical board was, could count as government or could count as a government action for pre-enforcement, and the Texas Supreme Court said no. So it's back over at the Fifth Circuit, and we'll see what happens. I think, as you probably know, and maybe some out there, that the Supremes tend to kind of wait for a lot of stuff to be similar, and so they may be waiting for that, and they're going to have to, I guess, answer it at some point.
In the meantime, thousands and thousands of lives are going to be saved.
That's the whole goal.
And also, in the meantime, you have to think about, we have now demonstrated in one of the largest states in the union that you can pretty much restrict a majority of abortions, not all, but a majority of abortions, and somehow women aren't dying. Like, I haven't seen any dead women in the streets in Houston or in Dallas.
Yeah, they
and
just
like women like have like business suits and like still like walk in front of men at the airport and like are on their way. Like, but the picture that the feminists have been painting of Texas has been, oh my gosh, you're so brave to be in Texas.
It's slavery to force women to have children.
Yeah, that's literally the argument. It's
nonsense. But if the court does somehow wiggle out of it, it will be so blatantly known that they had to do mental gymnastics to do this. I mean, it is created out of thin air. The only way you can say that this is government action is it's just made up. It's impossible. They'll expose themselves to using ideology from the court. Now, we would be surprised by it. Yeah. And I try not to put all my faith into the unelected judicial branch. So a lot of people, I've seen some of your podcasts talk about Dobbs. I don't know what's going to happen.
That was my next question.
Cool. Whatever happens, right? We're still going to keep pressing on, and we press the battle and continue to change hearts.
That should be my talking point if it goes bad. Right? We're cool.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going.
Right. We want to make it unthinkable, right?
Yep, that's right. Unthinkable and unavailable. It's 2 goals. It doesn't stop. What's next now? So there's been a lot of stories about Texas and everything going on, and Oklahoma City saying they're seeing an increase in abortions. We know, Aid Access and some of those groups are dropping and driving chemical abortions into the state. Like, what's next, Briscoe?
Man, prosecute Aid Access, which is a goal, by the way.
Can you
I'm working on
explain
that.
who Aid Access is?
Yeah, right there, kind of a parent fund that helps facilitate money to help fund abortions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's a weird organization compared to the Lilith Fund. Aid Access is different the way they're structured, and they are doing that right now. By the way, yes, Aid Access and
is Aid Access a criminal operation?
Yes, sue me and defamate. Yes, you are a criminal organization under the laws of Texas. Yeah,
you're trying to sue Briscoe right now for saying that. That's why I'm trying to get him on record
trying to find me.
So we have to.
So there are things to still be done.
So we have to go after these.
Yeah,
groups.
yeah. We need to pass legislation. Allowing, I guess, civil litigation against abortionists who perform abortions on women going out of state. We're starting to target these funds.
Wait, back up. So you're saying you're going to let Texans sue abortionists in another state?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
If they commit abortions.
Yeah, they kill babies on Texas women.
On Texas women. They kill Texas babies.
Yeah. We got to deter it. I mean, these things are all deterrents.
How is that legal though? Can you do that because of interstate commerce? Like, how is that legal?
Yeah, we'll find out. That was literally the question. I was actually
a state representative and a lawyer. We'll find out.
Yeah, no, there was literally a conversation a week ago with some attorneys that you're friends with, and I was like, that sounds like an interstate commerce issue. And we're like, yeah, but we think because it's not national, it's only in the state, we can get away with it. But at the same time, do you let that be the thing that stops you? Like, I don't know. Let's go for it. I love the attitude. They do it all the time. People are like,
the abortion lobby doesn't let the law stop them.
I don't know if it's legal. And if you do this, it's going to be attorney's fees to the abortion lobby. Therefore, we should do nothing. It's like, screw it. Let's go.
Do you know how many times I've literally heard that line you just said?
Roll my eyes.
I know.
But that's actually one of the things for Heartbeat when we did it, to get that wing of the movement on board. We're like, don't worry. The state will not be paying any attorney's fees out because civil enforcement only. That is one of the benefits of the Heartbeat civil enforcement
Another
mechanism.
like unintended consequence benefit.
You can't sue Texas.
Yeah, you can't. So you think the next step is letting citizens here in Texas sue abortionists in other states for committing abortions on Texas women?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great idea. And civil enforcement on mail order abortions.
I was say, how do we stop? How do we stop the chemical abortions?
I give you standing to sue the manufacturer, or the person.
You're going to give me standing.
Yeah, sure.
Am I texting because I'm living in my camper in Texas right now?
I mean, you're here. I think you definitely need to be here. But yeah, we need to give Texans standing.
Who is suing? The manufacturer,
everybody, the shipper, the pharmacy, whatever. Everybody.
Is there anything you can do to regulate, like hold the chemical abortion, considering it, what do they call it, like the drugs that are, the state has the right to limit certain access to drugs in the state. I'm blanking on a term. This is what happens when
I mean, we do it on pharmaceuticals all the time.
Yeah, like, right? Has that been tried?
We describe them, like you can't just go buy Vicodin or something.
Yeah, states were like, no, you can't do that. That's a regulated medicine.
Yeah, oddly enough,
it's kind of a wussy move.
Well, I mean, look, there's also the crazy concept that a minor doesn't need their parents' consent before doing a really serious medical procedure, right? Which is kind of odd, right? On judicial bypasses.
Yes.
I don't know what would happen there, but I do know under the civil enforcement mechanism, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And so that's the entire point, right? It's to discourage the action, to make it such a headache that they go, you know what? We don't do business in Texas. We just don't want to mess with it. It is a pain.
Too expensive.
Yeah.
What do we do about all the abortions that are still taking place on children before the heartbeats can be detected?
I'd love to come back and do an abolition with civil enforcement. I'm totally fine with that. What is unique, though, is by the time, and you probably talk about it better than I could, by the time most women even have their first, cycle, there's a heartbeat.
I know. That's why I was surprised.
It's essentially abolition.
Someone told me that it's the heartbeat bill's only stopping like 60 to 70% of abortions. I would have thought it would been much higher. Like, are they claiming?
Yeah.
What statistics have you heard?
It is being looked into right now to find out if anybody is, performing abortions after detection of a heartbeat. So
yeah, because I was getting yelled at by a student who was saying that, electrical impulses wasn't a heartbeat. So I feel like you're probably going to have to pass some sort of ordinance defining what a heartbeat is.
I mean, we do kind of have that in the,
do you have
the law. Yeah.
He's like, you're a moron. It's
yeah, no, I would say that, but no, yeah, it's
how do you define the heartbeat in the law?
Like that.
Electrical impulses.
Yeah, heck yeah, man.
What do you say when a pro-abort says that that's not a heartbeat?
I don't know. I just don't tend to argue with them. I mean, it's just cool.
I can imagine you're like their favorite person.
Why do you even respond to it?
It's
like you're not
fun.
Okay.
Well, I enjoy debating with pro-abortion people because there's always somebody in the room who's making their mind up about it. Yeah. And so I love getting them to the point where they just scream and holler and deny basic science, and I'm calmly and rationally explaining my position. Yeah. And then I look at the person who might be pro-choice or kind of ambivalent, and then like, do you see what?
Right on, because you can have that talk, because it's like, okay, if it's not a heartbeat, well, when is it a heartbeat? And if it was a heartbeat, would you be in favor of the law? No, like then we're not even having a good conversation. It's like every time it's like,
Oh, then
what
they
about the woman who's in this position? All right, cool. So if we only allowed it in that situation, would you be for it? No. Then why are you talking about the rape exception?
I know.
It never makes any sense.
I know it's frustrating. There was this big new LA Times piece, and it was actually giving us a lot of credit. I don't know if we deserved it, but of really trying to transform. It used to be that the rape exception was a commonly tolerated thing within the pro-life community, and that's no longer. And they interviewed me specifically because of our work in Alabama and some other states of saying, no, your circumstance of your conception doesn't change your value as a person. And I was like, I don't think we've done much. We've just been always very philosophically, consistent. And I think that the other side is using the survivors of sexual assault for their own gain, because exactly what you just said. They'll say, well, what about this? And then you say, okay, fine. Take rape off the table. We'll say there's a rape exception. Do you still support the law? No. Well, so then you don't really care about the woman who survived a sexual assault and has become pregnant. You really just care about justifying your extremist support for abortion and using this tragic circumstance to justify 100% of all abortions.
Yeah.
And then
and then we know, of course, the studies of the outcome and the psychological trauma and the fact that I don't know anyone that's ever said, I don't regret it. It was good for me. They try to, but we also, then you look at them, you're like, no, you've got problems. Like the women who do that, when you look at their life, you're like, you've had a hard life. I'm sorry for you. But you know what, though? We can be careful in our communications, though, and not demeaning them and making them the bad guy, recognizing that it was the system that has lied to you. It was the abortionist that harmed you. It was whoever helped you do those things that is actually right there, the bad guy. And I think we need to continue to be careful about that we're not against women. And by the way, a great job in Oklahoma last week on that bill carried by Senator Nathan Dahm, awesome friend of mine. I also
hopefully future U.S. Senator.
Yeah, yes. If you're in Oklahoma,
yes, go
volunteer for Nathan Dahm. By having express language in that bill, though, very clarifying, like, the woman is not part of this. You didn't really need it there because it shows.
Let's talk about that.
But it very clarifies that you're not, and I think that helps win.
Because I did go meet with the Speaker of the House in Oklahoma. So we were staying in East Texas, and we thought there was tornadoes coming in East Texas, and there were. And my son's afraid of tornadoes. So we decided, like logical people, to drive to Oklahoma to escape the tornadoes. And
there's tornadoes in Oklahoma.
I know, but there were tornadoes coming for East Texas, and they weren't scheduled for. They came to Oklahoma the week later. Yeah. But anyway, so I was like, well, this is great because I have some work I can do in Oklahoma. So Gunnar and I went up there. We met the Speaker, and that is exactly what I said, because they have the abolished human abortion, John Brown beard people who hate my guts, and I'm a big,
I sign on to their bills, by the way.
Yeah, what's up? Do you hate me?
No. Here's what's fun, because I don't care. I'll sign on anything that advances it. Even when it was murder, I've yet to have anyone show me an instance, from the 70s or prior to that, where anyone actually ever prosecuted a woman. Like, it just didn't happen.
But don't their bills...
Even the pre-Roe stuff, they still prosecuted the abortionists. It just didn't happen.
That's true. That's true. There's two cases. There's a 1911 case, I think a 1918 case.
Right on.
I think those are two cases.
Yeah,
and that was in First Things. Those were in First Things a few years ago. But so you've signed on to the abolition bills that call for prosecution for women? Yeah,
I'll sign on to them. I don't like it, but I'm going to go like, hey, let's do it. How about this one? Remember we were discussing...
How do you defend that? Because she's a second victim.
Legislatively, remember we're going, where do we anchor at? I'm like, I'll take it. We'll amend it on the floor, make it better, but let's get it moving. Right? If I recognize that... I'm not going to let perfection be the enemy of good. I didn't author the things, but when they come up, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll have my name to it. If it moves, let's fix it. But in order to get it to move, it's got to be done.
Do you think that harms the pro-life movement's brand and stance to say that now that we have legislation out there that is going to put that?
Yeah, I think the right thing to do is to do what you saw in Oklahoma, which is expressly say it doesn't. The pro-aborts often use that as one, but maybe in your travels you've seen people that were on the fence and somehow they're not pro-life because of that. I haven't seen any data
I look at it as, I guess that's a question. So I've had this conversation. I remember I was at Liberty University, and it was obviously a very pro-life crowd. And a student came up to me and said, I support pro-life movement. I believe that there should be no abortions. But how can we say abortion is murder and ends the living a life of a child when we know that there are some women who choose abortion, majority of women now in most states have already been a mother, have already given birth, that know what they're doing is ending the life of a child. How can we actually say it's murder if we don't seek to prosecute her? And isn't undermining our whole position? And I responded, I said, my feeling is that she is a second victim. And even though even if she's already given birth, we always talk about like this tunnel vision that she's in, that she's got to escape this crisis and she's not thinking clearly or rationally. I do believe there's probably some women who absolutely 100% know what they're doing is wrong and still choose to do it anyway. But we still see her as a second victim. Now, I would say that after we've abolished abortion has been made illegal and unthinkable, and we have the pro-life culture in place, I think there might be a discussion in a few decades.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that.
A few decades.
I don't know if you use this material, but at what point,
I know,
if so, it's illegal to go to the abortionist isn't going to perform it because they're criminally responsible. What do you do about the person that does it for themselves or something? Like, how do you say, like, no, really, like, you can't do this?
Yeah.
I don't know whether maybe it should be civilly or something, but of culpability. But again, I'm not a fan of that language, but I'm not going to let the lack of perfection.
I just think advancing those bills now hurts us.
100% agree. If you've got an option,
so stop signing on.
If you get look, I have already called the guy that usually cares. I'm like, please copy Oklahoma's version this time.
Thank you.
But if there's only so many shots you're going to get at the cannon, that shouldn't be that one. And that's why I've never been like mad that the version of abolition in Texas doesn't move. I'm not like really angry because we've got heartbeat done.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to see total abolition. I also, though, recognize that like it's going to be enjoined really quickly. It still sends a message.
Yeah.
They're like, we got it done. So that's what's great about Oklahoma. It's like, cool. We got it done. It sends a message. Now let's go. Like, we think they're about to do even more. Let's pass them all. Like, at least send the message that we're pro-life. Allow people to talk about it and think. Force people to take votes.
What?
Make them go on record.
Since you're a lawyer, can I ask you, going back to the earlier discussion was, what happened after the Civil War? I've been saying a lot about Reconstruction and the failed Reconstruction of the South. I mean, it took 99 years. From the end of the Civil War until the Civil Rights Act was passed. And like, my challenge and my call in campuses has been like, we can't let 99 years go in between the end of legal abortion until we actually have a pro-life culture, until, we've welcomed and we're welcoming every life in law and service.
Yeah.
But like, what happened, going back to the punishment question, like, was it made immediately illegal for you to own a slave after the Civil War? I mean, I assume it was, but were they putting people in jail? Because, like, I mean, the thing is, like, about national healing too. Like, there was a conversation about how much do you punish slaveholders for being a part of this horrendous industry for decades. What do you know anything of, like, have you guys had the conversations about that?
On how do we heal from it?
Yeah, I mean, because I think about like what happened at the end of the Civil War, the end of slavery, because you have these folks who want to pass bills that immediately put women in jail. But I think there's a question of when's the national reconciliation?
I think the reconciliation actually came in a way through knowledge and people of faith, that we recognize it was kind of already heading in that direction. There's this. I'm going to call it a myth. Maybe someone would prove me wrong. That, late 1700s, early 1800s, that all of America were church-going, Bible-thumping Christians. It just wasn't true. They just weren't.
Were deists. They weren't.
Yeah, they weren't, right? Like your average person. I mean, that's why you see, even late 1800s, early 1900s, these large gatherings of churches and being created and people coming to Christ. It was a massive movement. This wasn't common. This is, in a way, still new and unique. And I think that mass media can be a plus to that people are starting to change their minds and making abortion unthinkable. It was changing the culture. Americans were a little late to it. I'm glad that the Brits did it before us, and heck, being here in Texas, Mexico, had abolished slavery prior to us, and was trying to push Texas in that direction. In fact, the Brits were willing to recognize Texas sovereignty if Texas would abolish slavery, and we didn't. Sad history. However, I think some of that healing, the reason the Civil Rights Act was passed is because of that heart change, is because of people of faith starting to be more prominent and dominant and statistically more out there. And I think the same thing can happen for abortion. Is that, if it's ended, I think if you really understand the teachings of Jesus Christ, you're going to be compassionate for those who have made those wrongs and recognize that there's healing and try and heal them. We can change hearts. It is still a little odd, though, that people equate morality with a court decision with law.
With legality.
Right? Like the court said it, therefore it's good or right. And I think that can be corrected. Like recognizing, court's
been wrong before.
Dred Scott, right? Like, does it mean it was good? And we can come back from that and heal.
How dare you, though? How dare you compare abortion to slavery? That you're a big bigot or a racist. It's unbelievable when you try to point out the illogical and the egregiously decided court decisions, and you say, well, look, this is what we're talking about when we speak about the preborn child having value and having rights. And then, the argument is always you're a racist and bigot for bringing up slavery.
Yeah, we need to teach logic again and teach people how, to argue against straw man fallacies and everything else. It's one of the things that's kind of died in education. It's unbelievable
because you can't even make. I always make this argument. A couple of years ago, right before COVID, I was in Ohio. It was before my speech, and we had a tabling display, and I had made that argument, and I had some black students come in. You said you're for slavery. I was like, no. Did you hear? So then I went through the whole argument.
No, but did you know that blacks would be the majority population in America if it wasn't for Planned Parenthood? How about that one, bro? Wrap your mind around that one. They were targeting you. But we can't have those discussions. It's odd.
Okay, Briscoe, we're gonna wrap up. Do you have any advice to a young Students for Life leader who's thinking about entering the world of law or politics? What would you tell them?
I remember at first day at law school. It's actually like the week before, and you come in and meet everybody, and all these organizations have tables. They're tabling, right? And it was reproductive justice, and I'm like, "What's up, man? Y'all the pro-life group?" They're like, "No," and I was like, "Oh, that's such a good word, right? Like reproductive justice." I was all on board. I love that branding. The left is so good at the use of words and branding, right? Yeah. And it always sticks with me. And seeing these girls' faces, no, that's the opposite thing. And I'm like, so is there a group here for that? No. I'm like, well, we need to fix that, right? And that's actually where
and you became their best friend.
Yeah. No, they weren't fans of mine, and they probably still complain. They're really embarrassed. I'm a graduate of that law school. I see stuff all the time where we get letters or sending letters to the places where I'm from. They're like, you should be embarrassed that you gave that person a degree. Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed of giving my money to them as well, because they're all overrun by baby killers. The advice to students, I think we've kind of in a way covered that, which is not to be deterred or let your age, again, you're actually negotiating against yourself. Yep. When you're wanting to do something, I think it's in our nature to try and take the path of least resistance or do the easiest route, or to question ourselves, or to go, if I do this, someone's going to talk bad about me, or this professor might mistreat me, or I might hurt these friendships, or whatever. You can come up with all kinds of excuses.
Yep, that's right.
Those are actually, that's you, man. You're negotiating, you're causing yourself to be in doubt. And so you've got to realize, or whatever it is, to write notes or put it on your forehead or back of your hand, that your duty is just to act, man. Speaking of slavery, I'm just a slave of Christ. Right? The outcome is his. Whatever it is, just act, go forward, let the outcome be something else. Get over it. And somehow you've got to also convince yourself, in a way, I guess this is selling yourself, is recognizing that those things, those attacks, are like compliments. If you just envision, see our students at Snapchat that's used a lot. Like the person hating
TikTok,
on you,
apparently, it's a
the
big
person
thing.
hating on you on TikTok and Snap, like visualize it as a bouquet of flowers. Like, thank you. I don't know how you like recognize that the
I see
hate
it.
is a compliment, that you're doing the right thing. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't see you as a threat. Recognize this is a spiritual battle. They wouldn't be coming against you if you weren't doing the right thing, right? Like
right.
you're the threat now, and so keep rolling. I mean, be okay with doors being closed in your face. Be okay. There's gonna be pro-life groups in your state or your community, and you want to go get involved, and they totally overlook you. Right?
Yeah,
it's going to happen. Keep going. Don't let that become a wound and fester. We see that happen in the pro-life movement all the time, and it causes division. You're like, man, that wasn't a good thing, and I promise you that's not of the Lord. He didn't want you to do that. Let at some point the Holy Spirit work on them and recognize that they were wrong. You can't change them.
And let it go.
But your consistency and your repeated actions of still trying to work with them will be rewarded. Eventually, they're going to recognize that you were that kind person. Whether you got credit or not, doesn't matter, right? Like your victory is in heaven. And just keep going, man.
How do folks stay in touch with you? Because I'm sure the next legislative session that starts next January is going to be fun, and you're going to have lots of things that you got going on. So how do folks stay in touch with you?
Yeah, well, Briscoe Cain is kind of the easiest one to put on the Google machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of sticks out.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been on TikTok in a while. I was doing that a little bit. You can
You're
find me
cooler
on,
than I
on
am.
the Twitter sphere and Facebook. Yeah, TikTok was kind of fun.
You're on Twitter? I thought you got banned from Twitter.
Yeah, I was banned for
But
a
you're
long
back.
time. I'm back, man.
Okay.
With Elon Musk, I think my followers are going up. I don't know.
You're good.
He's on the board disrupting things.
You're
over there.
good.
I'm waiting for Elon to come out of the closet of being pro-life.
I literally just tweeted that like 2 days ago.
Okay, I'm sorry. I see you tweet a lot.
Well, it's not always me.
I didn't know that. That's like people come to me all the time. They're like, I liked your post. I'm like, I have staff for that.
No, that's what always gets me in trouble on campus. So like in 2019, I'm like, oh, you'll see me on my phone. I'm like, oh, okay, hold on, let me scroll down.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Yeah. I did see it. However, recently he recognized, he was asked like, why are you having so many kids? And he recognized like the population issue
that's right. I know.
with countries, which,
It's our,
I mean, that's why I got a bunch of kids. I understood.
world issue. He said.
But absolutely. You can't be upset. You have to have children. But we have room for population, I promise you. Like you can put everybody in Texas and have all the farms the rest of the country. There's room.
Yeah, Texas.
God made this place to be okay. It's going to be all right. It's okay. He created it for us. So we're not going to, I promise we're not going to ruin it. He may at some point later on. Hopefully we're raptured first. But that may be him. But I don't think we're going to ruin it.
Theology over here.
Yeah, cut that out. Where would we?
You're talking about Twitter.
Yeah, Elon.
Man, so the closet pro-lifer.
He's showing that concept.
I know.
Something's going on, man. I mean, like, I don't know who's reaching him. Something's happening, right?
Pray
like
for Elon Musk.
We've seen others. It'd be really cool, right?
That'd be awesome.
Just trigger. I have a feeling behind the scenes, if we talk to him, I think it's worked over because he's a guy of logic. Yeah. And man, if you will be consistent
he
on logic,
understands science.
Yeah, like, you can't get away from this. The only way you can argue for the pro-abort position is to completely be illogical and let motion. Like you cannot do it. You just can't.
Yep.
And if you follow, you're like, duh. This makes total sense. Yep. And we recognize. I mean, we're seeing individualism sadly go away through communalism and populism. These are, by the way, this is socialism and communism. It's sadly starting to take concepts of it are starting to take root in the Republican Party as well. But how can we care about the rights of the individual, of course, without caring about that unborn child? And how do we, protect them or care about their liberties? And I know Musk right now is, kind of getting on board of civil liberties. And there's a reason, many true libertarians, there's an odd movement right now of progressive libertarians where they're essentially liberals. It makes no freaking sense. But they all recognize, they're like, yeah, dude, if you're not protecting that individual, then how on earth is the government going to care about my individual rights? And there was a really long thing with it down, but I'm curious where Elon goes. Yeah, like pray for Elon. Like something's happening there. And we've seen this before. We saw this with Trump, right? I mean, some of the people that were there, the 100 that helped lead him to Christ. I couldn't make that trip, but he had a true conversion, and people that had maybe been in the church their whole lives are like, man, that's not real. And you're like, you got to recognize this dude was a little different before he came to Christ. Like he's got some rough edges. Granted, man, he, some of the legislation he signed into law funded more abortions than Obama did. That's disgusting and sad. But I mean, I think he came to Christ, and I think at some point we may see Elon do that. I mean, what more than being this man of science is that he definitely probably recognizes this was not all random.
Yeah.
The more you saw like a particle, some new particle they found like is heavier than they'd ever thought before. And if it was actually at some particle accelerator. It came out this week, and it may they're gonna have to recalculate everything we know about the universe.
From one particle.
Yeah, because it's heavier than they thought, which totally throws off all their calculations. Like, we don't know anything anymore. Like, all of understanding of atomic science could literally just have changed.
I'm Googling that right now.
Because we don't realize what we don't know,
That's
right?
crazy.
Science keeps changing.
Yeah. That's
Follow
awesome.
the science.
All right. Well, follow Briscoe on Twitter. He's
Yeah.
going to be on Twitter just like Elon Musk. And follow him on all the social media. And you have a website. I'm sure I get emails from your campaign.
Yeah, Briscoe Cain. But no, press the battle. Don't be worried about the naysayers. Don't be worried about your friends. They're going to be all right.
Thank you for being such an awesome representative of the pro-life generation in Austin, and can't wait to see what you
Thanks,
do
buddy.
next
Love.
year. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in this week. Make sure you share and like this podcast.